episode 330 of Late Night Linux, recorded on the 21st of April 2025. I'm Joe, and with me are Phelim,
Pontifex,
Graham,
good evening,
and Will.
Hello.
Let's not make any jokes about that.
I'm allowed.
Let's get straight on with the news then. Git turns 20, and GitHub did a Q&A with Linus Torvalds. Of course, Torvalds famous for the kernel, but also he came up with Git in the first place, although he only maintained it for a few months and then handed it off. So it's a bit weird to do a Q&A with him because throughout this thing, it's like him saying, well, yeah, I made it 20 years ago and only used basic stuff with it, and then other people have just run with it. But it is quite something to have come up with Linux, the basically ubiquitous kernel, and Git, which 90% of developers use every day. He must be some sort of genius.
Genius? Have you looked at that picture of him in that video? He looks more like Commander Data. I'm thinking maybe he is.
But can you believe that Git is 20 years old? Makes you feel old, doesn't it?
Mm. I had to go and look up today if Bazaar came before Git, and it didn't. Bazaar was, perhaps is, Ubuntu's version of Git, their own homegrown version control software, which Launchpad was built around originally. And Bazaar had a lot of really nice features. And I thought that perhaps Bazaar predated Git and Git might have borrowed some of the ideas from there. But no, Bazaar came a few years after Git. And then I think Launchpad added Git support sometime in the last 5 or 6 years or so, maybe before that. And so, yeah, I think the vast majority of check-ins, even in Ubuntu these days, are on Git, but don't quote me on that.
Well, in this Q&A, he tells a story about how his daughter went off to college and the people in the computer science department heard her surname and were like, oh, yeah, is it your dad who made Git? And he was like, much more famous for Git than he was for Linux, weirdly.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I think it's difficult to know which has been the most influential. And it was always remarkable. It was BitKeeper. I always thought it was odd that people working on the kernel needed a BitKeeper license.
Yeah.
And it's incredible that, I remember thinking at the time that Linus took the responsibility of that decision on his shoulders, went with it for as long as he could. And then when it created more problems than it was solving, he was like, okay, fuck it. I'll just invent my own. And he did.
Yeah, and he only took 2 weeks off work, effectively, to write it. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. And also, it's like, necessity driving innovation. It's another example of that, just like Linux itself.
Yeah. It's the ultimate scratching of your own itch, isn't it?
Yeah.
He had a problem to solve, and so he just solved it twice.
I mean, I don't know too much about version control, but over, the decades, I've used a lot of them inadvertently, and I'm sure we can all remember CVS and Subversion. I never used BitKeeper, but...
Yeah, I definitely don't still have it.
Yeah. But Git, it just makes sense to an extent. Okay, it quickly devolves into entropy as far as I'm concerned. But at least at the high level, it makes sense. Everything being local, you can copy the local directory and just start again. But yeah, it's great.
All right, there's been a couple of big distribution releases recently, Fedora 42 and Ubuntu 25.04. So we're not going to go into huge detail with these. Fedora 42, I think the two biggest things are now there's a KDE edition, which is on a par with the GNOME edition, which is great to see. We kind of talked about that before. But also they've got a new installer. Thank God, finally.
Really? Okay. I installed Fedora because of the said KDE news and tried out the install. And why is the continue thing in the top left? Why? Why is it there? I hate that installer. I don't know if it's got the old installer, but if that's the new installer, they fucked up again because it's awful.
I don't know. I didn't try the KDE version, but the GNOME one, I'm used to now the old installer, which was just terrible. And it's not that it's in the top left, it's that it changes. Sometimes it'll be where it should be, and it was just a confusing mess. It was very powerful and allowed you to do lots of different configuration and whatnot, but it was confusing and a mess. Now it's much, much easier. Although it did struggle, or let's say I did struggle with a multi-boot system. I tried to install it on my N100 machine, which had the Windows that came with it that I shrunk down and as Ubuntu partition. And I wanted to install Fedora 42 on one partition and Ubuntu 25.04 on the other. And it was a real fuck about. And I had to try a couple of times and then ended up having to boot into a live Ubuntu and do boot repair to get it to actually show up in Grub and everything. But then I did try in a VM and gave it the whole disk, and it was really smooth and easy and so much better than the old installer.
I only use a VM, and yeah, it installed fine once I got my head around how the installer works, which I don't like it. It's weird. You feel like you're going to the top left to back out of a thing, and you can do all the things separately. And
that sounds like the old installer to me.
Okay, well, that was a recent download. I only downloaded that today to try it, so that is currently there then. And it's a bit of a maxi KDE install, as in you get a lot of things like the couple of games and stuff like that, but it's fine, really, to be quite honest. And again, the advantage of it is once you're in it, it's KDE, and I use Discover to do all the updates. It could have been on an apt system, it could have been a Yum system, or you wouldn't even know the difference, and that's kind of a good thing about it.
Well, it's DNF in it, not Yum.
Whatever.
Days, yes. Yeah, well, I just did DNF update, and it was all fine.
Ugh. Why don't you use the GUI? What are you? Stone Age?
No, I'm a command line elitist is what I am. But for the brief time that I spent with it, it seems like a solid release. And thank God they finally changed the installer to something that is not a car crash.
Well, I saw a full car crash.
I'll have to check that after we record to see if the KDE edition has got the old installer.
Oh, it's terrible. It's so bad. Because there's those 6 boxes of things you can do, like, partitioning and user and root. And you go into it and then you're like, okay, and now what do I do? And then there's a button up the very top left that you don't fucking see. It's like, go back. And I'm like, does that cancel what I've done? Or
right, yeah, no, that's definitely the old installer.
It is fucking awful.
Yeah, you have to go in and set the root user and stuff, then go back out of that.
Yeah, and you can say disabled root user. Now, that's what I did, but I went into the partitioning, did the partitioning, and I thought, okay, now what do I do? I can't get out of this. I've now reached a dead end. And then I looked up the top left, and there's a blue highlighted button saying go back. And I'm like, well, what the fuck does that do? Does that delete all the fucking changes I've just done? It's like, oh, what a pile of shit.
Well, try the GNOME edition, and you'll find that they've got a great new installer.
Well, I'm not going to do that, so there we go.
Okay. Well, Ubuntu 25.04, I tried, and there are various improvements with the new GNOME and everything, but what really stood out to me was apt 3.0. And there's nothing hugely different about it. It's just the way it's laid out. When you want to, say, remove something quite big like LibreOffice, it really just displays, okay, you're going to remove this. We suggest you move this big list of stuff, and we're going to do this now. And instead of it just being a wall of text, it's sort of nicely broken up into easily readable chunks. And then if you want to do the auto remove to actually get rid of all the stuff, it's all in red showing you are getting rid of all this stuff. Do you really want to do that?
Yeah, I was quite taken by surprise when I experienced it on the new version. And as you say, it is nicely laid out, and I got used to it very quickly. And then going back onto my older machines, I felt a little bit old-fashioned very, very quickly.
Because you've been running it on your N150 box. Is that totally headless, or did you install a GUI on it?
No, it's totally headless, and I haven't experienced the new version of GNOME, but I would quite like to try it because I think there's some nice fixes in there. But I'm not at the point where I'm willing to stick it on my main work laptop and see what happens. So I think that'll have to wait.
Yeah, it was really through necessity, wasn't it, that you put 25.04 on your server effectively?
Yeah, that's right. I needed the brand new kernel in order to make everything else work. But from a server perspective, my experience has been very good. It's been stable. Well, let's see, when did I install it? Maybe a couple of months ago. It's been stable all the way through the last couple of months of development cycle. And in I'd say the last 3 or 4 weeks, there have been very few changes. Even up to release date, there have been very few changes. So I think it was a pretty solid release and no last minute panics.
Right. Because I have often run these pre-release, daily images. and just updated them. And as you get close to the release, it's just a shitload of updates every day. But you're saying it wasn't like that this time then?
Well, it wasn't like that for me on the server, certainly. I think I did, unless auto updates in the background was doing something that I was completely blissfully unaware of.
Maybe.
But I remember doing an update probably a couple of days before the release happened, and there weren't any. And I thought, oh, that's good. That's a good sign. But maybe it had just done it itself.
Well, you say it's been all solid. Let's report back in 9 months when we have to update.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's the problem, right? Because now I'm stuck on a non-LTS on a server, which I do not like, and I will definitely need to be moving to LTS. And hopefully everything will just work because I've invested quite a lot of time in this box now.
Well, I was going to say what you really should do is wait for the hardware enablement kernel and then go back to the LTS, but I don't know how practical that's going to be without just wiping it and starting again.
So it's almost like your one-upmanship of Joe's N100 is actually backfired on you then.
Who'd have thought?
And you know what? You don't even get that much more performance.
It's worth it, Joe, though.
Mm-hmm. Although the GPU's better, isn't it?
Yeah, mildly better. Actually, without the new kernel, it doesn't work at all. So it is quite a lot better. But when it does work, it isn't a lot faster, but it is a little bit faster.
Okay, this episode is sponsored by Tailscale. Go to tailscale.com/LNL. Tailscale is the easiest way to connect devices and services to each other, wherever they are. Everyone these days has a VPN as a sponsor, but Tailscale isn't like those. This isn't about hiding your browsing habits from coffee shop owners, and it's not about watching Netflix in another country. Tailscale is a proper VPN for connecting your devices securely. It's great for companies, and it's great for self-hosters. Tailscale makes creating software-defined networks easy, securely connecting users, services, and devices. You can get set up in just a few minutes and then see everything in the web interface. I love how easy and clear it is to see all my devices and everything I need to know about their status. Tailscale's personal plan will always be free, so support the show and try Tailscale out for free today. You'll get up to 100 devices and 3 users for free at tailscale.com/LNL with no credit card required. That's tailscale.com/LNL. On to a bit of admin then. First of all, thank you everyone who supports us with PayPal and Patreon. We really do appreciate that. If you want to join those people, you can go to latenightlinux.com/support. And remember that for various amounts on Patreon, you can get an advert-free RSS feed of either just this show or all the shows in the Late Night Linux family. And you even get some episodes early. And if you want to get in contact, you can email show@latenightlinux.com. Getting forked by Microsoft. This is a post by Philip Lane about his project Spiegel, I think, which is some Kubernetes shit that I don't really care about. But
Mirror in German, isn't it?
Doesn't that have an I in it?
It does have an eye on it, yeah. I just wonder if this is an anglicized version of Mirror.
Makes sense because it's like peer-to-peer image serving for Kubernetes images.
Yeah, it would then. Yeah, because I think of the newspaper Der Spiegel. So, yeah. Anyway, the bottom line is Microsoft forked it without sort of letting him know, and he argues without proper attribution. But it was MIT licensed, so he deserved it.
It's an interesting read because Microsoft engineers actually engaged in conversation with him about the project. And he was under the impression that they were interested in using his project themselves to improve Kubernetes image performance, and it would become a partnership. And the first thing he knew about it was when he went to some conference and saw a presentation on Microsoft's project and realized it was actually his own project.
Yeah, he started looking at the code and he was like, wait a minute.
I thought you were going to say the first thing he realized it was somebody else when he looked down and saw he had concrete shoes. He was about to be dropped into a fucking river.
We've had a bit of a discussion about whether the GPL would stop this kind of thing. But my first inclination is also, well, this is what you get. You know, the world's obsessed with these permissive licenses, and this is what happens when you use them.
I have some sympathy for him, but I think he was an idiot to choose the MIT license. He should have picked the Affero GPL. That would have solved all these issues, and it would have been no problem. But it also, I think, goes to show that Microsoft are a share of bastards who are not invented here, thieving bastards who went and took essentially a project to make it their own project by bolting on the front page that said made by Microsoft?
I don't know. I think they could have done a lot more, but, Apple does the same thing, except for they keep the code to themselves within their own walled garden, and we don't have a clue what they're doing with MIT license code.
Yeah, but I don't think either of those two things are good.
No, neither of them are good, but I think maybe that's just corporate behavior that we have to expect.
But if you look at the likes of, say, the guy who did the app Get, which I find so hilarious that in his article he quotes all the different package managers that existed before, but fails to mention Linux and apt-get, which is literally a letter different from his project. But the exact same thing happened to him. They even looked like they were going to offer him a job and, they come down and meet us in Seattle, it'll be all cool and all this. And then, oh no, it all fell through, and then they stole his project in exactly the same way. I think this is where companies like Valve need to be really, really, really championed, in the fact that they look at a project, say, oh yeah, you're kind of doing what we want to do, but could you do it a bit like this, and we'll fund you, and yeah, it's still all your stuff. We just want to help out, and that's the way it should be bloody done.
I agree with you, Phelim, but using language like stealing is wrong. It's like, that's not what the license is about. That's not what open source is about when it's licensed to MIT. It's an open invitation for people like Microsoft to do this. And in a way, we should be celebrating that they've been able to do this rather than lamenting the project being stolen.
Okay, fair, but stealing in spirit, Graham, that's what I meant. Yeah, but it is kind of shit, though, that this guy went out, did all the hard work, and then they came in and stole all the glory, which is how it looks, to be quite honest. And much the same as Winget is. It's like literally stole the idea, maybe, or gist of it.
Look, I totally agree, but I can see that this is like Microsoft is an oil tanker in the Atlantic. It can't turn, it can't adapt for individual cases. They just don't have the function to be able to do that. And it is a problem, but that's the problem with MIT.
Well, and permissive licenses generally. apt-get was Apache, for example. If you don't protect yourself with a copyleft license, this is one of the risks.
I think you can expect this to happen. If you get corporate interest, this is what they're going to do.
I think permissive licenses are for the fairies. This is an absolute joke. You should protect your own users to know what they're going to get, to know how they're going to be supported going forward, to know that your project is going to exist, Whereas both of these cases, both projects have said either, yeah, no, I need to now split myself from Microsoft to show my users that, because they're all confused as to what's actually happening. And all of them are shutting down because they're going, well, we can't compete with this, Openness is great if it fosters continual community, not kills one branch that started it all. BSD is evil. Boo.
But it's more free, Phelim. It's more free.
It isn't, though.
Depends on your worldview, doesn't it? Let's do some feedback then. Ice Green writes, long-time listener of the show. Listening to episode 328, I was disappointed to hear you say that you wouldn't visit the US if you were paid to. Fair enough, it's your podcast. But you might want to consider that many here are not happy with how the government is operating, nor did we vote for this administration or have the power to do much about it. It doesn't mean I hate my country. Maybe you simply have an exaggerated sense of your own individual importance and should think twice about who your fans are, or were, before making snarky comments about an entire country on your podcast. It's funny that this person's name is Ice Green. But anyway, this was not something that was flippant and throwaway. It may have sounded like that. I said I wouldn't go there if you fucking paid me, and then we all laughed about it. However, I would not go to the United States of America out of genuine anxiety that something bad would happen to me. It seems quite unlikely that something bad would happen to me, but there are people being detained for extended periods and then deported, tourists that have somehow rubbed the authorities there the wrong way. This was completely serious of me that I would not go there. Even if it was for work, I would not go there under this current administration. So I wanted to just clear this up. It wasn't just me being silly. And it's fair enough that you don't hate your country. I don't hate your country. I hate the administration that is currently in charge of your country.
Yeah, I mean, I've often thought for work, if it happened now, would I go? I mean, would they people at the border listen to this podcast and then make a decision that I should go to Guantanamo Bay. I don't know. And I mean that in a joking way, but not really, because it's happened. So, yeah, it's a messed up situation.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that we would get sent to El Salvador, for example, but...
Why not? I honestly, at this point, I don't know whether that's necessarily true. There's people who are from Germany who turned up and have gone missing for 2 weeks as they were cycled through a system. So it's quite plausible.
I mean, they were ultimately deported to Japan, I think, where they'd travelled from. But, you know, I wouldn't want to be detained there for a few hours even, never mind weeks. And so I just personally would not take the risk of going to America right now. And it's not just me. Look at the statistics of the tourism rates and the empty fucking planes coming from Canada and stuff because no one wants to go there. Let's do a quick KDE Corner then. This week in Plasma, the beginnings of a Wayland session restore.
Yeah, so it's quite nice to see Wayland sort of continuing on with the advantages, the bringing it on par with the X level and, you know, obviously the increase of security and all the things that come along with Wayland itself. It's not quite finished yet. It'll be more a case of like window positions and stuff like that, not actual state of applications, but I think it's a really good start and there's a lot of cool features coming in 6.3.5 and 6.4 and it's great to see this coming along.
All right, K-Wallet now a wrapper for Secret Service.
Secret Service is kind of one of these free desktop type projects. I think GNOME already has it as part of theirs, where essentially anything that is a password that needs to get stored, or, you know, like a Wi-Fi credential or something like that, gets stored in the back end. Now, historically, this has been K-Wallet for KDE. It was kind of getting a bit long in the tooth, and it was a bit worried the way things were going that it looked like maybe Secret Service was kind of carrying on and K-Wallet was going to keep up. Thankfully, the work has been done. K-Wallet will now have 2 APIs into it. One is the Secret Service one for modern apps that actually know how to do that. And then it's going to keep the old K-Wallet API for packages that maybe haven't been upgraded yet. And the advantage is that you can then also choose different back-end storage systems like KeePass or whatever to do the various storage of passwords and the like. So it's good to see this actually go on because it's a real core to a secure operating system. And it's nice that they've finally got that going.
Can I just say, Secret Service is the most fucking awful name I've ever heard for something like this.
Yeah, you think of people kind of touching their ears in suits.
Yeah, and I also think that it's just an API to give my passwords to the FBI as I cross a border check.
Oh, so cynical.
What are they thinking?
It's not Secret Service, it's Secret Service. Emphasis is very important here.
Oh.
All right, and the biggest KDE news is they've fixed the Academy website, so now it says when and where it is. And also registrations are open.
Yeah, I know. Crazy details that people might seem to know, but it's registration's now open, so go do that.
Right, well, we better get out of here then. We'll be back next week when who knows what it will be. But until then, I've been Joe.
I've been Phelim.
I've been Graham.
And I've been Will.
See you later.